This clip is part of the CycloZeal Library and is shared for educational purposes only. It should not be considered medical or individual coaching advice. Please train responsibly. Consult a healthcare professional if unsure. Participation is voluntary and at your own risk.
All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on one of cycling's most powerful skills. It's a technique that feels like a secret language, one that lets a group of riders become a single, high-speed machine that slices right through the wind. You know that feeling, right? If you've ever been on a bike, you've felt it. You're pedaling hard, your legs are on fire, but it just feels like you're pushing against nothing, like an invisible wall. Well, that wall is wind resistance, and it is the single biggest thing slowing you down. It's a constant battle. But what if I told you there's a way to cheat the wind? 30%. That's the number to remember. It's roughly how much energy you can save just by using the technique we're going to break down. And that's not just a small boost. That is a massive, game-changing advantage. So how exactly do cyclists punch through that invisible wall to get that huge energy saving? Well, they use a really elegant solution, and it's called drafting. It's basically the art of using the rider right in front of you as your own personal shield against the wind. But here's the key. Drafting is all about cooperation. It's not just about selfishly hiding behind someone. It's a living, breathing system where the whole group works together. By riding close behind one another, you create this pocket of air, a slipstream, that dramatically cuts down the wind resistance for everyone, except, of course, for the poor soul at the very front. It's all about conserving energy by sharing the workload. Now, for this to actually work, you can't just have one person stuck at the front doing all the hard work forever. Everyone has to take a turn breaking the wind. And this beautifully organized rotation, it has a name. It's called a paceline, and it has a very specific choreography that just repeats over and over. And this breaks down that choreography perfectly. First, it's your turn to pull at the front. You're taking the full force of the wind. Once you've done your share, you signal that your turn is over. Then you smoothly drift over into what we call the slow lane. You recover by easing off the pedals just a little bit, and finally, you rejoin the line at the very back. It's this constant, flowing cycle that lets the whole group maintain a speed that would be impossible for any single rider. And that recovery phase is so crucial. But look, it's not about slamming on the brakes. It's a tiny, subtle change. So if the group is humming along at 40 kilometers per hour, the rider who's drifting back just needs to ease up to about 38. That little drop in speed is just enough to let the faster line of riders glide past before you tuck in neatly at the end. It's a micro recovery. But a paceline is so much more than just the mechanics of it. It's really a conversation. It works because of a clear, unspoken language and a set of rules that keep everyone safe and in sync. This is where the real skill and etiquette of group riding come into play. And this, right here, this is probably the most important piece of that unspoken language. Before you move out of the line, you give a little flick of your elbow to the side you're going to move to. It's a clear signal to the person behind you that says, "Hey, I'm done, get ready to pull." It keeps everything predictable. And in a fast-moving group, predictable is safe. And predictability is really the name of the game. Everyone in the group has to know exactly where the fast lane is and where the slow recovery lane is. Now, whether the fast lane is on the left or the right might change depending on where you are in the world, but what really matters is that everyone is on the same page. The group decides, and then you stick to it. No surprises. Which brings us to the most critical part of all of this, riding safely. You know, when you join a paceline, you take on a responsibility to the entire group. The rider who's tucked in just inches behind your wheel is putting their absolute trust in you. Your every move affects everyone. So what is the absolute biggest danger? It's this: overlapping wheels. That's when your front wheel creeps up next to the rear wheel of the rider in front. At high speeds, the slightest touch is all it takes to send you crashing down, and you could easily start a domino effect that takes out half the group. It is the cardinal sin of group riding. Think of these as the non-negotiable rules of the paceline. You have to hold your line, no sudden swerving. You almost never touch your brakes because that can cause a pileup behind you. When you're at the front, you are the eyes for everybody, calling out potholes or debris. And when you get back on at the end, a simple shout of, "Okay," lets the group know the line is complete again. And hey, if you're new to this, just practice at slower speeds and give yourself a little extra room. There's no shame in learning. So when you boil it all down, drafting is just the ultimate expression of teamwork in cycling. It takes the individual power of each rider and multiplies it. By working together, by sharing the load, and by communicating, the group becomes faster, stronger, and way more efficient than any single rider could ever be on their own. Which kind of leaves us with a pretty cool paradox to think about. We always think of cycling as this solo sport, right? Just you against the elements. But the art of the draft, it shows us something completely different. It's this beautiful dance between individual suffering and total group trust. So maybe, just maybe, cycling is the ultimate individual team sport. Something to chew on during your next ride.